Tony D and Little Joan in the background somewhere, and this I can't do a Hollywoke hot take. I'm too fried. I don't know why. Again, must be all that turkey. But instead, I'm going to do a screenwriter's tips on holiday stories. I think I'd done one on this a while back, but I'm going to do one again because this one I just recently wrote, as you know, the Pineys book 16. And for those of you who don't know, the Pineys, each chapter, there's 13 chapters, is a different legend, but it's also a different holiday. So, um, if you're writing a screenplay that takes place during a holiday, this is for you. Now, the obvious one that everybody writes, they like to write a Christmas story. That seems to be the top of the list. Those are pretty obvious. They've been done over and over again. It's all about the Christmas spirit. It's all about giving and all that kind of stuff. A lot of times Santa's involved or some version of Santa is involved, like the Red One movie. But I think people are kind of sick of those kinds of movies. I'm not sure what you could do new in that realm because so many Christmas movies have been made. But the themes are always pretty universal. I think there are a few sort of obscure areas you maybe could do some interesting things with, but if I was to sit down and write a holiday movie and I had my pick of the holidays, I would stay away from Christmas because I want to showcase one of the lesser known holidays and maybe break some new ground. What would be number two? I mean, everything sort of pales from Christmas, right? I mean, they've done a couple of Thanksgiving ones. They generally turn into sort of family comedies where you have the actual Thanksgiving movie. I think Eli Roth did it. The Grindhouse movie. I think everybody can kind of get behind the food in Thanksgiving, but Halloween, of course. But the Halloween movies really aren't about Halloween. It's not about the holiday. A lot of times it's just a monster movie that takes place on Halloween. Although the third Halloween movie was kind of about Halloween. And it, falls into supernatural stuff. But I would like to see a different kind of Halloween movie, the holiday, and maybe do, you have The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is almost a Halloween movie. It's really a Christmas movie. But I'd almost like to see the reverse, where you do a Halloween movie. It's not a horror movie, but a movie about, with a more of a Christmassy message, right? So it's about giving to other people. It's about enjoying the holidays with your family and friends and having a good time, kind of thing. That would, to me, be a nice, wholesome Halloween story. It'd be a little different. And it could have the same sort of message as the Christmas movie would have, but it would have sort of the cachet of a Halloween holiday. For the Pineys, I did sort of in a short story, I did sort of an 80s kids movie, kind of like the Goonies, but a lot shorter. The next holiday, I mean, you might say Valentine's Day, It's a lot of Valentine's Day stuff because you might do a romance. But again, and there's been anti-romance movies, and I don't really count them, but maybe do a Valentine's Day movie that is not necessarily hyper-focused on romance. Now, they've done one that's a horror movie, but they've done horror movies on just about everything, so that almost doesn't count. Maybe do one, again, about giving or one that's just not a sappy romance, I think. A comedy movie is always fun. Lord knows we need comedies. Now, after that, what holidays do you have left? Well, you got holidays like Easter. Nobody really does Easter movies unless it's a religious thing. Can't really think of a that big of an Easter movie, really. So maybe somebody needs to do an Easter movie that, isn't super religious and isn't about Peter Rabbit and all the rabbit stuff. What else? What else? New Year's. You got New Year's. There's a bunch of movies that take place on New Year's, but it's not really about New Year's, Not really. I think there's one where everybody, it's like more of a romance movie where everybody's making a promise and a bunch of people hook up. But other than that, there's really not a lot of New Year's vibe in the movie per se. And after that, then you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. And this was my problem with the Pineys book 16, because what I wanted to do was do a holiday for each month. Like, I didn't want to double up on the months. So there's really no good holidays in August, right? I looked. You can look yourself. There's really not a holiday in August. So I ended up going for a National Mosquito Day, because South Jersey has a reputation for their mosquitoes, and it's a whole completely different story, but not so much about the holiday. But then you got holidays like Labor Day, not really tremendous amount of story there. You got holidays like Arbor Day and Columbus Day. Again, like, the holiday itself doesn't have a tremendous amount of milieu to it. You got Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray, but it's not really about Groundhog's Day other than it takes place on that day. Well, I guess, that's about as Groundhog's Day as you can get. Yeah, there's not a lot of great holidays outside of the ones I just mentioned. Because the holidays themselves, they're just days off. They don't necessarily have a message. I think Easter, you could do something with that, simply because it's a pretty often celebrated holiday. It's quasi-religious, but that's one of the reasons I think Hollywood avoids it, just like they would avoid, say, Passover, because not so much that they care about the religion either way, but they're kind of irreligious, and you're always cutting some of your audience out by focusing on a particular religion. I don't know a lot of non-Christians that would have much of an interest in a movie that takes place on Easter, unless the focus was completely off of Easter, right? If it's, maybe a funny family comedy, yeah, anybody could watch that. It's got a broad, that's the way you got to keep it. You got to keep it like a broad tent for the audience. But if it's actually about the holiday of Easter and what it means, yeah, if you don't know the background of the religious aspect, then it won't interest you as much, let's say. And if you're just irreligious, as a lot of people are these days, you might just, a lot of times, and I'm not a particularly religious person, but a lot of times when I'd hear about a religious movie, I would just sort of roll my eyes and go, no, I don't think I'm watching that. But, a movie like The Passion of the Christ, I kind of want to see, simply because it was directed by Mel Gibson, and he's an excellent director. But, yeah, so what you want to incorporate, I think, in your movie, though, is an aspect of the holiday. So if you're doing something like that, just, for instance, takes place on Columbus Day, you want to think about the meaning of Columbus Day, what it was about, and then sort of maybe have some of those themes in your movies. So it was about exploration, right? About a guy who did something that, he really expanded the world, kind of thing. And you would sort of put that thematically in the movie with your main character. Um, Same thing with Labor Day, you know. Um, Same thing with Veterans Day. Can't think of a Veterans Day. That might be a good one. Um, you know, except for people, there's not a lot of anti-military people out there, and people generally enjoy movies that center around soldiers because there's usually a little action involved. Um, Depends on how you roll it out, of course. It's just, to me, I think Hollywood needs to explore some other options because we have so many Christmas movies, so many holiday movies that you get the 4th of July. I practically forgot about that. I mean, we have the movie Independence Day, but again, it's not really about the 4th of July. Um, I think that would be a fun summer movie, right? You could do a 4th of July movie about a family or a group of friends at a summer camp, something like that, and just how they celebrate the 4th of July in a very American way. But even that these days would limit your audience. I mean, you got Hollywood trying to appeal to a broader and broader tent overseas because they see that as a big cash cow. 4th of July probably isn't a big one. And then when you get into holidays like, say, Bastille Day or, the 5th of November and Boxing Day, stuff that's not celebrated in America, then you have the opposite problem. Nobody here necessarily is going to be very interested in it. They don't even know what Boxing Day is, most people. So you want to pick a holiday that, again, aligns with your story thematically or in some way that, really ties it in. So for the 4th of July one, for the Pineys, I did a story in which it's a very American story. Because it takes place in the 80s, and that's generally considered the peak of America in a lot of ways. We're so very American in the 80s. And then, it's the Hemingway and a group of the cousins are doing something very American. They're going out camping for the holidays. They get drunk and have a good time, and of course something crazy happens. But you had to read the book to get that message. But it's like a fun story. I like to write my stories fun. I mean, you don't have to, but I think there's not enough fun in books. You read these books or you see these movies or even video games. Everything's so dreary. Everything's so dreary and dumb and stupid and boring. As if it's got some important message and it can't be delivered with some sort of exciting, happy tone. That's what really sort of pisses me off. But if you're doing something for the holidays, most holidays are a celebration. So it should be a happy tone. Don't do one of these movies that just says, oh, I'm going to do this Veterans Day horror movie. No, unless you're going to do like horror comedy and make it hilarious, probably not going to be interested. I'm not interested in your very serious, horror movie that takes place on a major holiday just because you wanted that name for your title. So yeah, I would think about the themes of the holiday and contrast that with your storyline and incorporate that in as much as possible. And then, just kind of start the story and see where it goes. I always advise people who write stories or do anything creative to use improv techniques. And one of the techniques is you just keep heightening the action of what's happening. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a fist fight or whatever, but when you say heightening, it's like you just do more of something. And then just and have the characters react to that and see where it goes. So in the case of something as, I don't know, innocuous as Labor Day, you think about what that has become. It's really about, the end of the summer, taking a day off from, work. It's about the working man and, taking that like further. Everybody having a barbecue, having a good time, taking that even further and further and further. And then somehow tying it into maybe the character's job, ends up maybe endangering his job during the course of the movie, having this, massive barbecue or something. Um, yeah, so it's good to sort of ruminate on these themes when you're writing it before you get too deep into the story. Maybe you have an outline, but once you get too deep in it, it might be too late to think those big thoughts. So you want to do this sort of brainstorming like before you really set pen to paper, as it were, and maybe just take some notes and kind of have those themes. Like what I used to do is, in a word processor, I would put a bunch of notes and then I would type the screenplay above the notes and it would get pushed down, but it would always be there. I could always just scroll down and refer to them. It wouldn't be a lot of notes, maybe just a page of just the main themes, and just to keep reminding me of the main themes that I wanted to incorporate. Because it's really easy to get caught up in your screenplay and or story or whatever and kind of forget that. So it's a good technique to keep remembering. Anyhow, that's my suggestion for writing something holiday based. And if you want to see a holiday based story, if you want to see 13 of them, check out book 16 of the Pineys. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan somewhere behind me. Thanks for tuning in today. I will be at the Triple Oaks Nursery tomorrow from 11 to 4 in Franklinville, New Jersey, and then again on Sunday in Franklinville from 11 to 4, and then we'll be doing the live stream. Hope to see you there. We'll see you tomorrow.